I like it. It's like, go ahead, squander. Just can you please kindly, gently squander less? Like, we knew you wanted to buy a 7,000 RAM powered gigantic gaming console, I don't know. Please instead buy 6,000 RAM powered giant something console for your gaming. You might be one of IELTS candidates who wants the IELTS test for university admission. Well, welcome to IELTS Juice! Today we're going to talk about somebody like you who wishes to study either at home or study abroad. So it's a university-themed essay. Now the rubric says, many university students live with their families, while others live away from home because their universities are in different places. Or maybe it's located in one of these English-speaking countries, and exactly for that reason, you are learning to prepare for IELTS. The rubric also mentions what are the advantages and disadvantages of both situations. Well, basically, we have two scenarios, or maybe we have two situations. Let's go with that. The first situation, you are a student staying at your home place, at your parents' house. There's a roof over your head. You will be served hot meal, and it's cozy and comfortable, and it's your family, and the cost of commute is not that much, and the university is just around the corner, or maybe there's a bus ride away. Scenario number two, you feel you're adventurous, so you want to explore, you want to find new friends, you want to see different cultures, so you decide to study somewhere else. Or maybe the quality of education is much higher, so you decide to study at a university away from home. Now that is something challenging. There are both advantages and disadvantages for both scenarios. The way I look at it is we are going to talk about both advantages and disadvantages of the first situation and advantages and disadvantages of the second situation, and then gather them up all in the conclusion. When we say advantages, it's plural. So we have to come up with at least two advantages for the first scenario, and again, disadvantages, minimum two disadvantages. On the other part, two advantages and two disadvantages. The rubric doesn't ask us to say which one is higher, so we don't need that part. That's good, but our hands are already full. You see, for each section, we need to come up with four main ideas, at least two positive points and two negative points. And on the other scenario or another section or basically another situation, you have two other advantages and two other disadvantages. So it's pretty challenging. Now, don't worry. For these elements, and let me tell you also that there are two major points. We have to address both situations, and we have to mention their advantages and disadvantages. The best approach would be to break it down. So you can devote two paragraphs for each situation. Hear me out. In the first situation, you write one paragraph, you focus only on advantages. And you write another paragraph, you focus only on disadvantages of the first situation. Then we move on to the other situation, another system. I mean, exactly the same system, but another paragraph. And you talk about the advantages of the situation number two and the disadvantages of the situation number two. This is the easiest one. By doing this, we will have 4 body paragraphs, which is still within the norm of IELTS. And the conclusion doesn't have to lead us anywhere. Basically, you can wrap up that the advantages here are this and that, and the disadvantages are this and that. For the other situation, here are the advantages and disadvantages. So your conclusion is going to be something presented, but in a very sequential and organized way. This is the easiest. However, if you decide to write 2 paragraphs only for each situation and merge the advantages and disadvantages in 1 paragraph, let me tell you, you're going to be in a world of hurt. It's going to be very difficult to put both advantages and disadvantages under one umbrella. To label it as a paragraph is a very, very difficult move. And we are normal writers. We are not super skilled writers. On that note, let's start reading. When it comes to university time, a plethora, oh, lovely, of students intentionally or inadvertently. I love both words, intentionally, inadvertently. I'm already intrigued by the vocabulary. I need a comma here and here, intentionally or inadvertently, which means unintentionally. So you put these two into between a bracket and comma, and then you continue. Should either, instead of whether, should either opt to live, because with whether we prefer whether and a clause, whether you do something or not. That is the common phrase. And with this, I believe either or either, both pronunciations are fine, can fit our context better. So should either opt to live with their families, or, because we're using the structure either or either or, families, or far from them, or be far from them, according to their university's location. Basically, that is correct. You need to know where your university is located. All right. Both states can be advantageous. Both statements can be advantageous and disadvantageous simultaneously. It's fact, which will be critiqued. Good. In the following paragraphs. All right. In the following paragraphs. So there are multiple paragraphs coming up. On the one hand, if students choose to study in their own cities, they may live with their nuclear families more often than not. Okay, that's a good topic sentence. If we are going only to talk about the advantages of staying with your family at your hometown and go to the local university, and it is something beneficial, I don't see anything about this thing being positive or negative. It just has a positive tone to it. More often than not. Okay, it's like, you know, when you live with your family for an extended period or more than the normal length, it sounds positive. Though in some communities in the world, they might look at it as a negative aspect. I see it as positive, but at the same time, I'm aware that in some nations, it might be considered a bit negative. Let's continue. I'm going to stay neutral. First and foremost, they can have some benefits by virtue of spending a quality time with their most beloved ones. With their most loved ones, I guess. Although beloved is not a bad fit. They're most beloved ones. Both would work. I don't mind a quality. Oh, and we don't say a quality time. You spend quality time. Time here really means time. It doesn't mean repetitive action. Like how many times do you check your emails a day? That's something you do repetitively. It has nothing to do with the clock or with a watch that you put on your wrist or the clock you hang on the wall. It is just time. So time is uncountable generally with the most loved ones. This is of paramount significance. I mean, vocabulary is interesting. The vocabulary is generic, like paramount can be used in any context. Intentionally, inadvertently, plethora, these words are beautiful, but they can be used in any context. They're not genre specific. It's not, we're not talking about university jargon, application, admission, campus, dormitory. These are words related to university, but we don't see those words here. We see the words that basically can be used in any context. That is, however, this is the difference between 7 and 9 in range. I'm being very loose in definition here. I'm giving you basically a rule of thumb that yes, if you want to get a 9 in range, you need to come up with some words related to the topic and specific to the topic. This is of paramount significance to make a close knit. I am looking at my keyboard and the button for Y is very close to the button for T. So this is a typo. This is a slip. It's fine. We don't have a word nie. So basically when our candidate was typing the response, they thought they pressed T, but they actually pressed Y. It's fine. This is fine. Close-knit family. Moreover, not only can they require with squander. I love squander as a not not in real life, of course. No, I don't enjoy spending money so casually. I love the word. I mean, you understand my joke, my drift, of course. But they require someone to do something, or basically they are required. And since we have can here, not only can they be required, so it's passive in bare infinitive, meaning it's infinitive without to or ing. So bare infinitive, be, and passive voice. So you need past participle. Basically, I mean, these words, if they confuse you, forget it. Not only either are they required or can they be required to squander less money. I like it. It's like, go ahead, squander. Just can you please kindly, gently squander less? Like, we knew you wanted to buy a 7,000 RAM powered gigantic gaming console. I don't know. Please instead buy 6,000 RAM powered giant something console for your gaming. So go ahead and squander money, but please squander less. I mean, you can spend money. The writer probably doesn't know how to say it properly. So they know the word squander, but you cannot, it is still negative. It doesn't fit the context very well, but I like it. I like it. You still lose some mark, but I like the activity that the writer is bold, is wants to experience something new. Less money on renting a house. Living with family can have a drawback, and that is, drum roll please. So far we've been talking about the positive aspect. Now let me, before we start looking into the negative part, let me analyze this. The first one was that you spend time with your loved ones, and that's of course unmatched. You cannot get it anywhere on the planet. Correct. That's one positive. The second positive, they are required to spend less money. That was the second one. However, this is not a sentence, this grammar. Moreover, not only can they be required to squander less money on renting a house, but also they blah, 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 but that part is missing. So this is bad. The grammar already goes to 6. This is damaging. There's a missing message, or the message is only halfway done. There is an attempt to do inversion, but the inversion is not executed accurately. Another part, this doesn't have development. You just mention that they don't need to pay a lot on rent. It needs one more sentence to support it. I know it's clear for all of us, but this is, we just already introduced the topic. We already introduced one benefit. That needs more development. I don't see the development here. So in the IELTS mindset, this is only addressing the task. This doesn't include sufficiently developing the task. And now we are going to talk about the negative side. This still falls under the umbrella term, but now there isn't much room left for it. I have a bad feeling about this. Living with family can have a drawback. Only one drawback. The rubric said, what are the disadvantages? I was expecting to see at least 2 drawbacks. So instead of a drawback, it should have been drawbacks. And that is the home's condition, which may pose a challenge for students. How come? Since this situation can be a disruptive situation, and can be disruptive and can deter them from concentrating on their university's materials. I need an example. Plus, this is not a sentence again. This comes in I don't want to say succession. Maybe that would be a correct word. However, it comes right after the first sentence, the first one. This becomes an independent part. This becomes a dependent. So it is dependent on the previous clause or sentence. It's not or, technically it's wrong, but if it helps you understand it easier, you can call it a sentence. But usually, grammatically and correctly speaking, this is considered a clause. So no, another grammar error. The message is there, but the punctuation here is now disruptive. Positive point, I love the word disruptive. I love the word deter. They were very good. Concentrating, good, I like it. I have a good feeling about the vocabulary. The grammar, as it goes, we're losing wheels. Moving on to the other. Oh, and last thing, I expected 2 drawbacks. I only received 1. Task response calms down. On the other hand, should students inhabit without their families? This is a very heavy word for this type of sentence. Live without their families is better. When their universities are away from their homes, this is not a sentence. You can read if instead of should, but the writer is telling us that he or she knows how to use should instead of if. Should students live without their families when their universities are away from their homes? So I don't need a full stop here. This is deemed to have some benefits, some merits. So I need to read it all in one go. The topic sentence here now focuses only on the merits. So in the following sentences, I expect to see only the positive things. I have an absolutely bad feeling about this. It is of the utmost importance that people from all walks of life experience an opportunity to face the challenges of life solely. And this can be a golden time for them. Time here means era. That's why you can say yeah. Furthermore, so this, what's the, from all walks of life experience an opportunity to face challenges of life solely. Okay. One example would be nice. For example, it would be a challenge to cook for yourself every day, to stay healthy, and avoid eating junk food outside or street food if it is of low quality. In some areas of the world, street food is good quality and cheap. Furthermore, they can focus better on their important issues as there are no siblings who can possibly disturb them. You know what I'm talking about when we say the disturb that comes from siblings. Good. This living alone, what? Living alone. I don't need this. Living alone without the family members. However, I need a comma here. Living alone, comma, without the family members. However, these commas are fine. Can be sometimes disadvantageous. This is not something we discussed in the topic sentence. This means it's not a healthy paragraph. Can be sometimes disadvantageous. Not least because of feeling lonely. I don't get it. Not because of feeling lonely. Okay, but because of what? There are moments that only by family can we fulfill our need of being calm, cheerful, and happy. I guess it's like there are moments when only by family can we fulfill our need to be calm, cheerful, and happy. And I need a comma here. That makes sense. But again, this is one drawback. And as I just said, it doesn't fit the paragraph's agenda. The paragraph's agenda was to just focus on the merits, on the good things. This is not a good thing. This deserves to be to have its own paragraph, to not to be with the other paragraphs, with the other sentence in this paragraph. My apologies. In conclusion, based on the place of universities, place means location here, not ranking. Students may reside either with their families or alone in another place. I don't need this comma. Both situations seem to have some beneficial aspects, but we don't mention which ones, and scores of downsides. Well, score is more than some. Scores of downside. We only had mentioned one downside for this paragraph. And the previous one, it wasn't, there were a couple, I guess. That's it. So there are only two here and one here. I mean, the choice of words here is not very helpful. In terms of costs of livelihood, having quality time with family, we first talked about the quality time with family and then the costs. And concentration of curriculum of the university. Concentrating on the university's curriculum. That sounds more natural. The university's curriculum here. 313 words. So, what can I say about the conclusion? The conclusion tried hard. There are two sentences, genuinely two sentences. So it's a good paragraph. It tries hard to sequentially present the reader with the events happened or took place in the aforementioned paragraphs above. But the sequence, let's say just it's one sequence, but the sequence doesn't really reflect the sequence. As I just said, we first talked about the family members being close, and then we talked about cost. We also didn't see scores of downsides. We just had one here and two over on top. I wish we mentioned the benefits by name and then the disadvantages by name for each category or situation. All right. Yes. Quadruple sixes. Why? The task is addressed, all of them, but one is addressed fully than the other. The drawbacks, I expected 2 drawbacks, I received only 1. Even in the merits, I saw 1 merit that wasn't developed very well. So the development which goes here, some ideas, some of these ideas, it doesn't matter how many, even one of them is inadequately developed. That calls for 6. The presentation of information is logical. We first talked about the first situation, then in the second situation, according to the rubric, you stay at home, first paragraph, you move away, second paragraph. There was a logic. And we first talked about the positive things and then the negative things. Again, there's logic. But the progression, the framework is there, but the progression in the sentence, in the paragraphs, I wanted a better progression. So I had some grammatical errors when you transit from one sentence to another sentence. That is effective. And some messages appeared in a paragraph that they shouldn't be there. It wasn't, or the message wasn't supposed to be there. Some faulty discourse markers. Instead of that, we should have used when, in some cases. Or the elements, the grammar also doesn't help. Sentences that weren't actually sentences and their discourse markers should be connected to the previous sentence, but the connection wasn't there. So it can be a grammar and connection mistake. And paragraphing, of course, was not always logical. The second body paragraph especially, it wasn't logical to say that we are going to talk about positive things, and then you have towards the end of the paragraph you see negative. I loved the range of vocabulary, but it never exceeded to wide range. And there was skill in using those words. I give this essay that. Not all the time, but still, with good control and some awareness. There are occasional vocabulary mistakes, but there were fewer errors in vocabulary than grammar, and the errors in grammar were more damaging. The errors in vocabulary were not damaging. Basically, the word order, I mean, the arrangement of words next to each other, that was the main cause of concern. But the arrangement usually doesn't affect understanding. And the grammar, the range, because we had advanced grammatical structures, we had if that was turned into should, we had since, we had inversion, we had the relative clause, so conditional sentences, relative clause. We basically had all of these advanced grammatical structures in advanced formats, but not always executed correctly. So their complex sentences had the same accuracy as simple ones, or maybe a little less. Basically, we had many, visibly, significantly visible errors in punctuation and very visible grammatical structures that affected understanding, that I had to correct all the time. I had to fix the grammar issues. All in all, very good response. Very good response for us to learn how to organize our essays. And when we have so many things that IELTS asks us to write, like write drawbacks, write advantages for 2 different scenarios, for 2 different situations, the best thing for us is stop for a moment, don't panic, and organize the advantages and disadvantages in separate groups. And each group deserves a paragraph. That's the easiest, safest way that I can say right now. And I'm sure you cannot find it anywhere on the internet, on the YouTubeverse. But make it easy, make it simple for yourselves, make it manageable. Once you do that, you can write a very good representative. And that representative this time was an essay. Yours might be a letter or report, but whatever it is, make sure they do their jobs well. Take care.